Hi, folks. It's good to be with you, and love to everybody out there. And hope you are all well. This is a series on creation, and we're looking at is Adam a real person? And I hope this has been a blessing to you, and I hope this has been a help to you. You can get me on my Facebook, Twitter, and website, jasonburstpreacher.com. So I was telling you about why evolution is maintained in our society today, and it's not based on science, it's based on cultural identity. And I proved to you by showing to you a variety of cultures: Incas, various tribes in America, Indian tribes, the Maoris. Any creation account gives a cultural identity to that society. And I was saying that in modern Enlightenment culture, from Kant to Jung, there was this identity that mankind was coming of age and was rationalistic, and that dovetailed into the 19th century and was picked up and developed by evolutionists such as Charles Darwin and Huxley, providing modern culture with a new identity. Now, ironically, this identity has now crushed rationalism, because those who said they are rationalistic and believed that society had moved to become rationalistic, in the end destroyed rationalism. A deep-seated skepticism came in, and postmodernism grew throughout the 20th century, and people became disillusioned with rationalism. So it was ironic that mankind in European culture gloried in its rationalism, but in the end floundered with its rationalism. So we see people like Jean-Paul Sartre, we see people like Kierkegaard earlier than Sartre, being disillusioned with the rationalistic process. And there have been philosophers who've written on science, such as Polanyi, who have shown that science is not as objective as it was made out to be in the 19th century. And so the king of rationalism, which was science, has been dethroned, and in its place has been left a skepticism. So and in that skepticism is become a moral relativism and a cynicism in our modern culture. But it has been important, and it continues to be important, for society to hold on to evolution, because it maintains this illusion that mankind has come of age and does not need deity and is rationalistic. But in holding to that rationalism, it destroys rationalism, and mankind loses the dignity that he is trying to hold on to, or she is trying to hold on to. Sorry, I got itchy eyes. So that is my cultural analysis of why evolution is being maintained. So I give you some arguments why I believe evolution isn't correct. For example, mutations and natural selection. It's not academically credible to believe in mutations and natural selection has produced the variety that we see today in the various biological forms that we see. Mutations have to happen many thousands, if not billions of times, and before you get a good mutation. And even that mutation, even though it might be good, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to produce the desired effect that one would want. So what that means is you're using a chance process. It's a chance process, and mathematically it's just not possible. It's impossible for that mechanism to produce the variety, not just in the whole of what we see in nature, but just in any one form of nature. It's not a mechanism that is mathematically able to be anywhere near a scientific model, and that is the death knell, the cutting edge of the cutting off of this scientific theory. Once you've demolished that, then there's nowhere to go. And there have been scientists like Dr. Sachs who have 3 scientists with him, research department, and they've tried to replicate macroevolution using the mechanism of natural selection and mutation, and they've not been able to produce any new forms, biological forms, from doing this. Absolute solid proof that mutation and natural selection is not a method to develop or produce macroevolution. So that argument, that one argument, is finished. That's the end of evolution. There's no comeback on that. The second argument is DNA and information. There's information in your DNA. Where did the information come from? How did the information get there? How can natural selection and mutation produce that complex information? Again, that is another death knell to evolution. And so those are two main arguments, but we could produce more arguments. I think those 2 arguments are enough to hold the line to show that evolution is not credible intellectually, and more academics are beginning to see that is the case. So I want to round off this with a few other thoughts. There are a lot of scientific anomalies. We have to face the fact that we don't know everything. We're dealing with the origins of life, and there will be difficulties. There will be, we won't have all the answers. But your scientific model will have a plausibility structure. And even though it is punctuated with issues that are not answered, that plausibility structure will stand. And the plausibility structure of evolution, as compared to creation, is weak, because the very mechanism of evolution is not viable. So whatever we're saying about evolution, it cannot be possible, because the mechanism is not adequate to produce the forms that we see today. So as a plausibility structure, it doesn't even get off the ground. But the plausibility structure that intelligence has been involved in creation does get off the ground, because we can see in the DNA information, we can see design throughout creation. And so it is a much more plausible structure, plausible method in understanding creation. Now, there are issues with the age of the earth. There are issues with fossils and fossil records. But I would put it to you that a lot of the scientific work that's done in physics is done with naturalistic assumptions. And those naturalistic assumptions will produce the conclusions. So, for example, when we look at light travels billions of years from one galaxy to here. And so we say, well, if it's travelled billions of years, therefore the world must be billions of years. Well, that's a naturalistic assumption. If there is a God and he created in 6 days, it doesn't necessarily mean that because light has taken billions of years to get here, that the earth is billions of years. It could be that God created the earth in 6 days, and the light came here, and it was done in 6 days. But now we see the the after effects of that. And what I'm saying is, if I created a tree, for example, I created a tree, it will have rings of like 30 years within that tree, but it was created instantly. So God could create the earth in 6 days, but when we look at it, it looks older because of the light traveling. Now, if we look at it from a naturalistic point of view, we say no, it's billions of years. But if we look at it from a supernatural point of view, it's not impossible to think that it could have been created in six days. So what I'm saying is, your view of how you look at physics will give you an interpretation of the physics according to your worldview. And if you're looking at it from a naturalistic point of view, you will come to naturalistic conclusions. Okay, so we'll get to that in more detail in the next video.